Brilliant ideas, powered by Hyundai Motor.
The contemporary art world is vibrant and booming as never before. It's a 21st century phenomenon, a global industry in its own right. Brilliant Ideas looks at the artists at the heart of this. Artists with a unique power to astonish, challenge and surprise. In this programme, Spanish sculptor Jaume Plensa.
Ideas.
It's not a decision to be an artist, it's a destiny.
He isn't simply citing sculpture, he's creating situations where conversations take place.
He's ambitious, but he works on a scale that demands a public presence.
He is playing with the conventions of traditional sculpture. You know, they're not like heroes on horseback, but they're like these giant heads of children.
Jaume Plensa is one of the world's most celebrated public artists. Best known for his monumental figurative sculptures, his iconic public works are sited around the world, from Rio to Calgary, New York to Tokyo. Whether made out of steel, glass, bronze, light, water or sound, his work aims to transform people's experience of the spaces they occupy.
I was born in Barcelona. It's a beautiful town, in my opinion, because it keeps still a certain human scale. Also, at the same time, I was born in a city with a sea. It's probably one of the most beautiful elements in town. It was great to live in a city in where you have the most beautiful museum with artists like Miró, which I loved when I was a child, and of course architects like Gaudí. My father was always playing piano, and my mother was singing. My father had an upright piano with two sliding doors, and many times when I was really tiny, I was hitting myself inside the piano, and he was playing without his knowledge that I was in. And I really discovered the beauty of the vibration of material. That vibration was completely the vibration of life. Everything was vibrating around me. And I guess I could understand today that how influential has been that experience in my work. And many times I'm thinking that all my life, or all my wish to be an artist is coming from the interior of my father's piano.
That's what he's engaged with. He's taking immaterial, extraordinary ideas and pulling them into a kind of a material form. And he uses, in that process, many different materials, from glass to steel to paper. But actually what he's doing is he's capturing light. He's taking light and moulding light in a very particular way. And through that process, a kind of enlightenment happens with the people who engage with his work.
One stunning work by Jaume in the north of England captivated a whole community.
Where we stand now used to be the old coal tip at Sutton Manor, and it was a bleak, and it was a desolate, and it was a dirty place. We've had 400 years of mining here, so when all the pits went, the whole area struggled. We entered a competition in 2003 called the Big Art Project. What it was looking for was to put something back into a community that would have the heart and soul ripped out of it by political or economic measures. And St Helens was just a perfect place.
They explained me about the mines the colliery, the pit, about things that I never listened before, honestly. One of the ex-miners one day told me, Jaume, when you are in the pit 300 meters under, the darkness is so deep that light becomes a dream. I said, wow, because I'm from the Mediterranean area, for me light is so normal, so I never thought about light, honestly. Thanks to them, light for me changed completely the concept.
We spoke to him about what we'd like on the site, and he unveiled a giant miner's lamp, which put us in a very funny position with him. We had to go back to him and said, you've kept us in the past. He said, well, this was my original idea, which I scrapped because I thought you may not like it. And then he unveiled Dream for us, and we all went, wow, this is it. This is what we like.
The dream of those guys was really to stop with the past and to really look into the future. I gave that title to my piece, Dream, because finally it's the portrait of a girl dreaming. It's with the eyes closed. She's not really interested about the landscape. She's really interested about the interior of the earth. Really, I guess, the soul of all these people.
When they put the final piece on top, we had 6 burly miners who'd been with it from day one, and me included. We all wanted to cry, you know, because you can never envisage how horrible this place was. To see lorries bringing up something of a quality of whiteness was just fantastic.
The day of the opening, 2,000 people came, all the village came. It was really probably one of the most unforgettable days from my life.
Today is International Yoga Day, and I thought it'd be a wonderful opportunity to bring this community of St Helens together and do a yoga celebration in front of the Dream.
Stretch the arms up.
I do yoga often, just as a hobby, and I love it. And as soon as I saw that it was here, I was like, that is going to be the perfect place to do yoga.
It feels euphoric, it feels slightly levitational, if I can say that. It's just a wonderful atmosphere, and to feel at peace. You feel very grounded and rooted and connected with the earth.
It's a massive change over like 20, 30 years. I remember this area being slag heap, so this is a great monument for the miners that worked here.
It's kind of like industrial, but because it's white, it looks really clean and pure, and that's why it looks quite spiritual. And also because she's asleep. It's really beautiful.
It's like great art should be. You either love it or you hate it.
Obviously, St Helens, it's one of the most important pieces in my career. The beauty of that girl is the beauty of the site. I did nothing. I just tried to open, you know, the paper. It was like a gift, but it's still wrapped. And everything was done by them. I just opened the pack. I love art in public spaces very much because I love people. And for me, it's easy to talk and talk and talk with the different partners in one project, politicians, social groups, people that are using every day the space.
I've seen his work in places around the world, and I never fail to be amazed at how people respond to them. People who have no notion of who this man is, this artist. And one of the things that Jaume is really intent on doing is taking that situation where people who don't normally engage with art find themselves falling into this art and becoming absorbed by it.
When I'm doing a show in a museum or in a gallery, of course, it's art because it's in a gallery or it's in a museum. But when it's in the public space, who knows? Public space has specific rules in the way that people are always disappointed because whatever you do, it's wrong, okay? But I guess that it's part of the game, and I like that, honestly, because you really are playing completely without any context.
He's an artist who has always said that one of his goals was to look for beauty, to take beauty to the people. And nowadays that's almost subversive. It makes him a counterculture artist.
We're talking about dreams. You are not talking about benches or about, street lamps or things like that. You must to dream about, I don't know, elements that could return beauty in the everyday life. You must to dream about something that becomes a beacon, something that people could consider a reference in the landscape.
Ideas. Here on an industrial estate in Barcelona's suburbs, artist Jaume Plensa works with his team in his studio, creating incredible sculptures from steel, iron, bronze, alabaster, wood, and even from light itself.
I'm combining many different alphabets: Japanese, Chinese, Hebrew, Arabic, Cyrillic, Greek, Hindi, and Latin.
I think what he's doing there is using information to construct a sense of identity or a sense of person. And how he uses that information exactly to convey the identity changes from work to work. And that's what keeps each sculpture interesting.
We have, like in a library, plenty of floating letters that we are bending following the shape of the human body. It's a way to create a second kind of a scheme.
Jaume is an artist who is totally anchored in conceptualism. His world is that of ideas, but at the same time it's incredibly important to him how he brings things into being.
This piece will travel in 3 segments. We had already fixed the head on top of the shoulder, and now was the second element. We just have to verify that every connector is in the right place, that the bolts are fine, and then we separate again all the piece, and it's going to sandblasting and painting.
He also has a romantic attitude. He's one of those artists for whom bringing art into being doesn't stop him dreaming. It's more like he dreams something and then looks for technical solutions to make it real. Even though when you see his work, you wonder at its complexity.
That is one of these kind of works that I'm doing, that people are invited to come in. That is for Seattle. And that will be a piece called Twins, which is one in front of another. And the concept of a mirror, when you are in front of a mirror and your image has been reflected completely in the mirror, and you have a dialogue with yourself, finally. And you can understand the evolution of time, who you are, or what your dreams are. And sometimes the person which are looking to you are not exactly the same as you imagine to be.
Jaume has spoken about the potential poetry of diversity, and that's a really key part of his work, that we consider ourselves as humanity without division, dissolving boundaries, and that's his vision. And the works become extraordinarily concentrated places of awareness and understanding.
It's a very romantic piece, actually, because when people are inside, they really could see the wall completely through the text. I guess it's an homage to humanity. Also, about the mix of different alphabets, it's a celebration of life and how well we can be when we are together. That, I think, is for me very important as a concept. And I also adapt in my range of alphabets music, and it's a kind of silent conversation because they are talking about sound. I love this idea that thanks to something physical you are dreaming about something invisible. I remember I was really fascinated about the origin of the wall, why a mountain is like it is, or a stone. And I was dreaming about that, and I remember I visited a cast iron foundry, and I liked it because I thought it was pretty similar. The moment when everything seems like a liquid, and one day suddenly gets cold, and it's fixed in one shape, which was very difficult to correct. Cast iron was pretty similar in that way, and I like it. Slowly and slowly I develop all this technique in cast iron that makes me quite well known around the world.
Oddly enough, in some ways, he's a traditional sculptor, and he has taken it in a direction that was rather risky, because to make the kind of work that he made and still be considered a contemporary artist was perhaps unusual.
We can really walk all around, and when you feel that the volume is complete, but when you are walking, the piece is disappearing and disappearing, and you get back in the back at the same idea.
And there's something about the face. It seems on the verge of dissolving or coming into being, as if it were a filmic technique. So there's a kind of potential there. Is it appearing or disappearing?
I remember one day I've been in the foundry looking from the iron going out from the oven. And I said, well, look, it's so heavy as a material, but when it's liquid, it's just light. And he said, well, maybe materials are not important. The important is your attitude in front of materials. And I started to work with light at that day. I love that, because my work changed completely with one or another light. I still remember an artist who visited my installation told me in the opening, Jaume, I love your installations, he said. If tomorrow you are coming back to the gallery and you miss one of your shadows, it's me who stole it. I think it was beautiful.
In 2015, the Venice Biennale played host to contemporary sculptor Jaume Plensa's latest exhibition. Called Together, it was installed within one of Venice's most celebrated landmarks, the Basilica of San Giorgio Maggiore.
He asked me to do an installation because my work is always talking about spirituality, silence. It was a beautiful, beautiful experience to dialogue with that basilica, because it's a temple with a function. It means a lot of people are coming here for other reasons than art. I decided to do the portrait of this young girl, but in a very transparent way. It's a mesh coming from my 3D work in the computer. Here is the brain of the studio, which is Liber. With him, we develop all the formations that we are doing with the 3D system. No?
My role, in a sense, is to help him in the technical aspects. When you go out there in the jungle of engineers, architects, city halls and stuff like that, and they want to know how much it's going to cost, how it's going to be built, how it's going to be transported. So Jaume is basically, he has the idea and he follows the whole process, but more in a poetical way now.
The crazy work is to pass this virtual mesh into reality. I have a fantastic team that helps me to do that. We have to prepare a lot of molds to follow exactly the position of the rods, and then to try to give the human touch. Every time that you bring a piece in a different place, especially here, well, you are very curious to know if your intuition was right. And it was very exciting, the moment that the boats arriving with the big crates, with the big segments of the piece, and we start to bring only the segments inside, and I realized that the scale was perfect. The piece is about 92 cubic meters of air, to emphasize the emptiness as one of the most beautiful parts of spirituality. We spent 10 days in the basilica working really hard to get this feeling of peace and life. Every installation is specific and special, but when it's an historical place like that, it's probably a little bit more complex.
The experience of Plensa's work in Venice is extraordinary. Not only is the installation itself inside the Church of San Giorgio, which is a true miracle, it is that it is total light, total clarity, through which you can see the city. You can see the person next to you. It's like a luminous presence.
I had lunch with the abbot, and he said something that I completely agree. He said, when the basilica needs a piece of art since the 16th century, that piece was always contemporary. Why not today? It's hard for me to imagine when the piece was in the studio. It seems that he was here since always.
If Venice is about working in a historic setting, Jaume's work in Chicago couldn't be more different.
Probably one of his most important works, and the one which in some ways defines him, is the Crown Fountain in Chicago. It's an extraordinary work of 2 towers made of glass bricks, and out of those glass bricks emerges an ever-changing series of faces, and they are the faces of the people of Chicago. And out of their mouths spouts water to form a shallow lake between the 2 towers. And of course it becomes a place where people congregate, where they play, where they see themselves. It's an extraordinary point of self-identification.
Water for us is life. It means life because our body is probably 60% of water. Fresh water is the rare privilege, and probably the next wars will be for the water, not for the petrol. I remember in my childhood walking with my mother in Barcelona, the gargoyles, because they were like monsters, like a very strange animal, even a little bit disgusting, some of them, but always with this mouth open and spouting water from their mouth. And when I've been thinking about the Crown Fountain, I decided to do it. It's funny because my pieces does not move, but technology today allow me to make new divinities from anonymous people living in town, but not fix it in one position. They continue to be alive, and that was my intention. It's fantastic when you really can live from your work, and you have to keep always in that opinion. Every day to think, Mamma Mia, such a beautiful miracle, that somebody still wants to share that with me. You should cultivate intuition, and you must to keep in a certain naive attitude. You must to be very arrogant in the way to defend your art, but very humble as a person. To be an artist, it's not a decision, it's a destiny. You could not do different. I prefer to try to be a person. Dreaming about how to grow up as a person, I guess art is a consequence of that. It's not a job, it's not a profession. It's just one way to look at reality. For me, the most beautiful way to talk about it is a way to breathe. You cannot do different, it's impossible.
Brilliant ideas, powered by Hyundai Motor.